name's Jesse Chason with Lisa Blanchard as the host of Airing Addiction.
I share often my journey started on this campus. Got sober as a client here, just like you.
I really do see phenomenal change.
Always hope. I've seen situations that on the surface look impossible become possible.
Doing this podcast is to share those recovery stories, be honest about what the challenges are and have some real conversations, but kind of share that out on the airwaves. All right, everybody, welcome to this month's episode of Airing Addiction. I'm Lisa Blanchard. I'm here with Jesse, my co-host, who's going to introduce our guest. But in just a minute, I want to share that we are in April. So if you're listening to us live or shortly after we produce this podcast, April is Alcohol Awareness Month. I'm sure that will come up in our conversation today. But I want to wish everybody a happy spring. Hope everybody's staying healthy. That's not my story today, but we will move on and shift our focus on to Jesse and our fantastic guest today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lisa. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jesse Chason, co-host here. And yeah, like we were talking about right before we hit record, sickness is alive and well, both in my house and Lisa's, but we're getting through it. And spring is the time for new beginnings. April, as you said, is also Alcohol Awareness Month. And when we were deciding who to invite on the podcast this month, our guest came to mind, and it's someone... he's someone I've known for years now, and over the last year or so reconnected, and just has a wonderful story of hope. And I thought that no other guest would be great for this month. So, Chris, good morning. Without further ado, take it away.
Geez, I don't even know where to begin. So I guess we could start right from, I'm not going to go to conception. But birth or anything. I didn't have the best upbringing. I'd like to think it was a child, there was happiness. A little bit of shuffling as far as moving and whatnot. There was some abuse towards my mother, in which we were in, I guess you could say, I don't even know what it's defined as, but maybe a battered women home or something like that for periods. But she did get out of it. It was a very, very young age for me, so I don't remember too much. I did not know my parents together. My brother would remember that stuff, so I never really thought it did much to me mentally until I was older and contemplated a bit more. So yeah, it was a pretty normal childhood. But there was very little known about addiction at that time. So, alcohol was common everywhere, especially my family. Alcoholics on both sides. All from my grandparents, which led into my parents, obviously into myself. I did not quite know that yet until I'd say when I was around 13 years old. There was a very, important situation in my life that would change me forever, where I was in a car accident. There was a woman parked on the side of a road, kind of getting her mail, and I was in the car with my brother and then one of his friends. And his best friend was coming in the other direction, oddly enough. And I think we were going maybe anywhere from 40 to 50, and we swerved around, and we hit a tree dead on. So my brother pretty much ate the windshield, bleeding profusely from the face. I was in the back seat, and at the time they didn't have shoulder belts in the back seat. It was just that one around the belly. So I flew forward, and the shock was so strong that my duodenum severed, which is where your small intestine meets your large intestine. Uh, so if you can imagine the two separating, all of your waste and digested, intake from your stomach is just leaking in your body. Nobody knew this at the moment, so I just laid on the ground and writhing in pain, but they didn't see anything visually, so they sent me to, I think it was going to be Hanneman at the time when it was actually an active hospital, but everything for my vitals dropped, and I was then changed to go to what is now university by Lake Ave in Worcester. It was a very long and memorable stay. I had some experiences that I keep private, but that changed me forever. At a very young age, I had no idea how much impact it was. I thought it was just physical, which, took years to fully recover. I mean, I remember starting 8th grade, going to school, and I still had G tubes in. I used to be the hit because I could take the cap off and, pour out a little stomach bile. Everybody laughed. And, thinking back how odd that must be for somebody else looking in. But yeah, so that was right when my growth spurt. So that forever changed me. I mean, I was behind everybody. They didn't know what was going on. They had to go to endocrinologists. Still I had stomach issues. I had to go back for another surgery related to the G tubes. Eventually, I started to grow into a man, and I remember I actually remember the first time I had a sip of beer, and it was a younger age. I won't say who gave it to me, but it was a family member. I thought it was disgusting, but then I ended up finding it my own way, and I just loved the way it made me feel. Because I was a very big thinker. I had ADD, which was diagnosed very young age, 8 years old, and it was still very controversial using, stimulants. But I remember doing studies and tests that they would do and see how it reacted and whatever. But yeah, I lost my train of thought. But yeah, I started drinking pretty early. I just love the way it made me feel. Like all that self-confidence, self-consciousness was just gone, and it just kind of stuck. And then that became my main priority. Everything surrounded it. Like I need to work now. I'm out of school. I don't want to go to college. I hate school. I can't take it because of my ADD, and I hated taking medication. So, okay. So I just started doing work, like mechanical stuff or whatever. In school, I loved anything technical, but, that were all required school. That's too much work. I want to live by the moment. I spent so much time trying to, recover physically from that accident. I didn't know who I was. I had no time for me. So very soon after I graduated, I was like, I'm out of here. And I just floated. I did what I felt right, but it was always alcohol, and there was some drug use too. I mean, I never got crazy. I never, took anything intravenously, but I did love psychedelics. Uh, I, I saw the world differently. I think it forever changed the way I think. And to be honest, currently, I'm not regretting that avenue because I saw something different in the world that I didn't see before. I saw glimpses of spirituality, but that disappeared quickly. The alcohol took over again, and that was it. Uh, so I just kind of, almost until I was 30 years old, like I just did enough to support myself in drink. My life revolved around my weekends and what I was going to do that weekend, where I was going to go, which was always drinking. And, I met amazing people. Some I still hold dearly. And I'm glad I met them all. I love them all. Speak to most of them to this day, but of course, some of them were the, party people that's the only reason why you're there is to hang out and party. Yeah, and then I was getting to like 30 years old, and I'm like, maybe I should start doing something. And right around that time, I met a woman, and we decided to have a child. And I really started thinking about the future, having a family, and being a good father and role model. And I said, okay, I need to have a career. I can't just have jobs. I need a career. In which a very small company at the time, from Worcester, I met the owner through a friend, a very, very close friend of mine named Brian. And I was introduced to the world of fiber optics. He loved the fact I was chosen for the position over a few other people because he liked the fact that I didn't seem to contemplate answers to his questions. So basically, he loved my impulsiveness, which later I found to be my demise. So yeah, that was my career. I started fiber optics, and I never looked back. I mean, I was starving for knowledge, and I loved shared knowledge and learning, but still, I wanted to drink. And then that friend Brian ended up committing suicide. That shook me, and I didn't know how to mourn. I didn't know it then. I just drowned it with alcohol. So it was just suppressed and it was bottled up. And then a very good friend of mine, David Usher, he passed away from Mercer, just out of nowhere. And then again, same situation. I didn't know how to mourn. It just it started to turn into anger. And I don't know. It was almost like at some point the idea of death and my own mortality, I started to realize from that accident, was starting to manifest into an actual being. Like I was a battle against him, and I had to top him. And every time somebody got close to me, like, hey, you look happy. Nah, I gotta take him. And it just kept happening. Then my friend Bobby passed away. And things started getting rocky between me and my son's mother. And I decided to take a job in New York City. I love the idea of it. I love cities. I love traveling. I love the idea of working out there. My reputation was amazing. So I got an apartment in the Bronx, and I had a live-in apartment with my long best friend, Matt. So I would travel Monday morning. I'd leave probably around 3 a.m. I'd drive up to New York City, and I'd stay there, work all over till Thursday night. And then I'd come home, and then I'd have my live-in apartment in Worcester, so I could be home for my son. Did that for a few years, and that was so depressing when I was out there because I specifically remember Halloween and him going trick or treating, and all I could see was photos. I couldn't see him. And I didn't want to do it anymore. And I was like miserable. And I began to hate the city. So that same friend Matt that I rented the place from told me about this other company that he thought that I'd be perfect for, and he wanted me to join his team in building cyclotrons, which is some amazing stuff. I mean, you're basically working at an atomic level and taking protons and using them to eradicate cancer cells without any type of incision. The brain specifically is one of the targets where it's most used, and because you don't got to cut into the skull, there's nothing. It fascinated me, and I thought that I could probably fill what was expected, and they thought I had the aptitude. So I gave it a shot, and I came home. And I stayed at that live-in for a few months, and I noticed Matt, something was wrong with him. And I didn't want my son to be around it. I didn't want to be around it. I thought the influence could jeopardize my health. And so I moved out to Sterling with a friend of mine. I rented a house, and I started working for them. And then he overdosed. So this is my best friend. Work with him every day. Known him most of my life, and yeah, he was gone too. So after that one, I was kind of an absolute mess. And I was on that fine line of getting by and just plummeting into death. Like there was nothing left of me. I got no happiness from anything. I was just there. I had to work my ass off in order to pay for my own place. Then I had child support, and then I would have, everything that comes along with being a father. For when I have him, then there was no me time, and to still with no mourning. I had no way to mourn. I didn't know how. I mean, there were people that tried reaching me, but I didn't know how to open. It just, everything in me just told me to hide in a shell. And yeah, I got insomnia. I'm pretty sure I have had insomnia my entire life, because you could probably spend a video on the stories my mom has when she used to have to wake me up for school. So, I recognize the problem of drinking, and it needed to be gone. And I recognize depression. So I tried to get help. I immediately stopped drinking alcohol. And I tried to learn how to manage it so I don't continue to drink and I stay abstinent. And I went to see a doctor, and they prescribed me an antidepressant. I don't remember the name. and it was just awful. I would have to get up 2 hours early just so I could fight through the nausea. I couldn't stand up without passing out or throwing up. And they said it would only last a couple of weeks. I toughed it out, and I just couldn't. I couldn't do it after a month. It just didn't go away, and it was just too much. So I quit on that. And at some point, I picked up alcohol again, and it would be 3-4 nights, and I didn't want to do it. Literally no sleep, just up, waiting for my alarm to go off. So I would drink until I passed out. That was it. That's all I could do. And I lived like that for a couple of years. And then my brother came home. He was kind of sick. He was coming home to do some work in Providence. Was, there a few days, got to see him a few times, and then he went to go to leave, and I guess he looked like absolute crap. And my father's like, "You're not going anywhere. You need to take some time, feel better." And so, yeah, he stayed another day, and then he left the next day, and then on his way, I think he got as far as to get on 84 by the Pike, and something wasn't right. He pulled over, and they didn't really know what was wrong, so they moved him to same hospital I was at, University, Mass, and they found stage 4 brain cancer, oddly enough. So the machine that I used to build to fight brain cancer, my brother has stage 4. He was a tough bastard. He's out there living, working his ass off. And so, yeah, they did the radiation, but they just kept finding more. It was throughout his whole body. And it was unethical, they said, to continue. So we had to let him go. But I snuck Howie Hump a lot in his dog. I put him in my coat and brought him into his bed in the hospital. And honestly, after that, everything's kind of a blur. I didn't know who I was anymore. There was nothing left. I couldn't hold jobs. So, yeah. Fast forward on January 3rd, 2023, I decided enough's enough. And obviously, I don't know how to do one thing. I mean, anything I put my mind to, I've been able to figure out, no matter how complex. It's just a matter of time and of what I want to learn, really. But this one I couldn't figure out. So I called my father, and he brought me in. He picked me up in Concord, New Hampshire. And that's when I started treatment. And then I kind of had to jump because I was already willing to do it. And I already knew that my way wasn't the way. You know, I thought of it like, all right, somebody's got a problem with cryogenics. They might need me to come fix it because they don't know how to do it. I haven't really touched the brain yet. I haven't figured it out yet. Maybe I should let somebody that's been trained and educated do what they do. Um, I very carefully began allowing medication because I never wanted to take medication. I've always been big on polarity, and you know, strengths and weaknesses play off of each other. You know, your body tells you, you know, the fecal matter is it smells bad. You know, it tells you to stay away from it because it's bad for you. So I should trust what my body needs. Uh, and playing with that, I didn't like, you know, because sure, you may be taking medication that will help this, but something else is going to be affected. But yeah, I allowed very limited um, medication. I won't disclose which ones. I do know that I when I went into detox, I was worse coming out. Uh, Something was not right. I was delusional coming out of there. I understand there's a withdrawal, uh, and it's risky and whatnot, but something was not done right where I was, and I'm not going to say where I was. Uh, yeah, and then I was then after detox, I went into basically a clinical portion, you know, where they basically diagnose your psychological side of things. Um, and there was a sleep med that I allowed them to take, and that was the first time I'd slept in years. And is right after that, everything was different. I like I saw a glimmer of hope, and but yeah, something wasn't right there. There was something missing. There was the attention to individuality. There was no personal care. And I heard the phrase "dump me" for the first time. Like, oh, he was supposed to do this earlier. Now he's dumping you on me. I didn't like that. So I voiced my opinion, and from there, I decided to handle all my own management. I told them what I needed. They didn't tell me. I'm the one that's going to represent my best interests. So with that mindset, but trusting their direction, you know, I just continue to be vigilant on what is best for me, and continued on my path. And I met the people from Veterans Inc. I started CSS there, and they were amazing. I mean, they showed me many different avenues, and I was able to pick and choose what I thought was relatable to me in my life. And I wish I had it in front of me. I believe it was August 28th, 9:48 p.m. I have an excerpt in my diary where I realized that what happened, and it was that I lost my spiritual inspiration. I was unable to practice faith. And not, it doesn't even have to be, if people get so scared about, hearing a higher power or spirituality, or faith. I mean, it doesn't have to be religious. I'm not going to disclose any of that information on what I believe or whatnot, but I mean, at some point you can't premeditate everything and control everything. You have to sometimes just let it happen. And that was one of my biggest problems is there was such big safety and because I also had post-traumatic stress from multiple things, including that accident. Like I always had to make sure everything was safe, and there was nothing going to trigger me. This is all done in my subconscious. Living and growing up. So I just had to let go and get out of my own way and just practice faith. And that's when I realized that I needed to feel inspired. And I know it. I looked for what inspired me, and that's where I've been since. And now I am following that path. I'm gainfully employed. I am an intern, and I am a college student currently going for human services. I would eventually like to get in the brain because I believe that the brain is bigger than the universe. And it's probably, I can learn about it until I die. It's that complicated. And then eventually go into philosophy so I can just, I don't know, tell one hell of a damn story. So yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy with who I am. I'm happy with my life. And everything's going to be okay. Like, I feel like everything's lifted if I continue to practice my traditions. And that's pretty much it. That's where I am right now. So wish me the best on my endeavor.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris, for sharing your story. There was just so much in there to unpack. Certainly a lot I could relate to. Some themes that they came out of it was overcoming, finding your own inner strength, and certainly resilience through loss. And at the end there, when you cracked a smile and you said, today I'm happy, I think that encapsulates hope for anybody listening or anybody that will listen to this, that no matter what life happens, no matter what life throws at us or what experiences, as difficult as they are, they shape us, they mold us, and then we can live through them to the other side. So I think your story is one of true hope and resilience to get to that happy place. And I'm wondering if just what that looks like to you on a daily basis. Like you said, you're a college student, you're gainfully employed, you're an intern. How do all those things make you happy?
Well, I am still. What makes me happy, honestly, is to see other people happy, which is why I'm pursuing human services. I want to help people have that awakening. What that awakening is for them, that's something we're gonna have to figure out. But I want it to be at least done in the way that I should be legally in the state of Massachusetts. before I just need to be accredited for them, for their protection, their safety. I don't want to steer them in the wrong direction. So knowledge, that keeps me happy. The more I learn, I mean, the philosophy is for me, really, but it's the same thing with neurology. You know what I mean? But I'm a writer. I never realized how talented I was at writing until I had 2 minutes to actually write something. I'm pretty damn busy. Work's great. It's all engineering like I'm used to. So everything's going to change every so often, and I just want to grow.
Awesome.
That's
some of the things that struck me, and I'm also really grateful for my cold because I had tissues next to me as I was listening to your story. It really was impactful. And you say this in your bio, but you really have been through more than anyone should have to. And I think as a clinician, one of the things that strikes me is the amount of trauma that you have been through since an early age, and especially a car accident and all of the layers of loss that really does impact your brain and your brain pathways and your resilience to now shift those, right? And start to find new pathways of responding to whatever comes your way is really so full of hope and so full of promise, because we can, right? That is, you kind of said you're really interested in all of this, and that is how brain science works. We're learning so much more about neuroplasticity and how our brains change over time, and that we're not stuck, right, with one pathway that we have been, repeatedly walking over time, right? We can change that pathway. And I just love the idea that you want to be part of somebody else's pathway, right? To walk those new pathways with someone else by working in human services. And so I'm just really struck by it. A couple other things that jump out at me is the real need to treat those that we work with as a whole person, right? So when you had your accident, you were like, I thought it was just physical, right? I just had to get over the physical, and the recognition that it wasn't just physical, right? It impacts you in so many other ways. And that as soon as you started to really interact with treatment, and treatment providers treated you as a resource, not a recipient, and gave you options for here's what you could possibly do to work on your path, pick what's meaningful to you, I think is just so impactful, right? There's not one path, there's not one way. Everybody needs to find their own way. Those were just some of my immediate responses listening to your story, and some of the things that I take away, right, as a clinician and as a person.
Well, thank you. I think you were right on too about making your own. I mean, there's infinite scenarios, and it was just so recognizable that everybody was generalized into one category, and this is how it needs to be done. And it's the same thing as our education system. There needs to be. I know it's extremely difficult, but there needs to be some way to individualize it.
And that's what you're doing, right? Lisa, thank you. I way back in the deep recesses of my brain, I remember Maureen Cavanaugh talking about recipient versus resource, and even incorporating those into groups, right? Because Chris, you're exactly right. There's no one size fits all cookie cutter approach to treatment. I was talking to somebody recently at a recovery event where the 8 months that I spent in treatment, I counted up like approximately how many people were in that program, and there was hundreds. And not all of us did the exact same thing, and nor would I want to, because that just, what worked for me wouldn't work for them, or vice versa. So really, finding individually what works for you, I'll speak for myself. That's what my focus was. And once I found that, I got that glimmer of hope that you were talking about there. And, you know, sounds like, right, for the last year and a half ish, um, you found what worked for you
Mhm.
and you're getting those results.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
So what do you hope people take from your story, Chris? Like what do you hope that treating professionals might learn from you, or others who have been in similar but their own stories of loss and mental health and addiction? What would you hope people can take from your story?
That it's okay to be human. Don't follow um, don't follow the same generational traits as the baby boomers, where you have to be tough. I mean, we're human. We got flaws, and it's okay to ask for help, advice before things get out of control. And I think that uh, I think we are late in trying to change something. I think this is something that is should be a mandatory educational system at a young age. I mean, same thing. They do sex education briefly. You know what I mean? This is something that will forever change somebody. You know?
Yeah. You're preaching to the choir, Chris. Lisa and I have been in front of hundreds of high school kids, and the impact that that has had, and certainly on me, of just the one or two that have waited to the end and walked up and really shared, similar to what you shared today, of when it started for them, right? Whether it be a family member, whether it be a friend, whether it be their own use. Certainly, I know I picked up my first drink at 12, and I wrote down what you said, that you thought it was disgusting, but you liked it the way it made me feel. I can identify with that. All right. From the first drink, hated the taste, actually threw up after two, but remembered the way it made me feel. And
If
then,
I
what's that?
if I had maybe known that I could have ended up where I was, maybe things would have been different.
Yeah.
Well, certainly, right? But at that time, we don't know what we don't know. And we talk about neuroplasticity in the brain, especially when we're talking about early adolescence, teenage years. Our brain's not done growing. So the thought that, you know, I would know fully or comprehend fully where that would take me at that age, I just I wouldn't, right? Or I would think that I was different and it won't happen to me.
And I
Yeah.
think even the message that sharing that it's okay to not be okay, right? And we
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
have to blunt that with other things, that it's okay to not be okay, right? When something bad happens or we live through some tough experiences, like it's okay that that hurts. It's okay that you don't feel okay. It's okay that you're self-conscious. It's okay, like you're okay. Um, Instead of kind of pushing that down, like you shouldn't feel that way.
Yeah. I commend anybody that can do that on their own, like from the get-go. I've seen a lot of different things. Like my perception is completely different. I was just talking to a friend of mine about this, and it's like it's almost like I've evolved, you know, in changing the way I perceive the world. Um, some things are like the first time, you know. I remember what the feelings were to be moved by something and then not having them anymore. And then now when I feel them, it's almost heightened and stronger, you know?
Yeah.
Because I'm paying attention and I recognize it. And I'm not
And you remember what it was like to not have those feelings, right? So
Right.
when we're numbing ourselves, and that old adage, we don't know what we have until it's gone.
Well, exactly. That's kind of what I was getting at, is that, I wasn't appreciating it then. Now I appreciate it because it was missing, which would be gratitude, would it not?
Yeah.
You know?
And I think that's a lot, I do a lot of mindfulness meditation and do a lot of mindfulness practice and mindfulness CBT. And sometimes it's that paying attention and the ability to pay attention, because we're not layering on other things that let us have that appreciation or that awe about what's happening in our lives.
I wrote a speech about it, actually.
I love what you said, Chris, where you said, I didn't know I was good at writing until I had 2 minutes to sit down and write.
Yeah.
Right. And if anyone listening to this and anyone that will listen to this, right, I just took that as like hope to give yourself a chance.
Well, I'm actually taking the summer semester off to, get back to some me time, write some music, do some artwork,
I think that all speaks to that whole person, right? Like, you're not just one thing. You're not just an engineer. You're not just somebody who wants to go back to school to help other people. You've got lots of parts to yourself.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I'm always going to be an artist. That's part of my morals and values and the way I do things. And that's brought into everything, really. Because, I don't know, I guess it goes back to individuality, like, you want to represent yourself in everything you do, best way you can.
Yeah. And the best way to get to know ourselves, right, is to truly check in, with yourself, what's going on, what's working, what doesn't work. And I heard you say back last year in January, you identified something that wasn't working, and then you took the subsequent steps to get help for that.
Yeah.
And off that one decision, everything else in life changed or went back to a certain way it was. And now, yeah, you can take the summer off and really engage in that whole person.
Yeah. No, I didn't know what to expect here, but hey, done is done.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Chris, for coming on today and sharing your story. I echo Lisa's sentiments of, just the trauma, the lived trauma, right? And to not only acknowledge that, but to explore that like you are doing. And you really have taken the bull by the horns in your own recovery to advocate for yourself, and can't argue with the results. Right? You said it yourself. You're happy today.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Chris, it's been a real honor to hear your story, to hear everything that you've gone through and the hope that you bring to others. And I'm really just grateful to have had this conversation this morning. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your vulnerability.
My pleasure. All right. Well, that concludes another episode of Airing Addiction. If you liked what you heard, subscribe, like us. We're on every podcast platform out there. Thanks to our wonderful producer, James. And we will see you next month.
Yes.
Take care, everybody.
Thanks so much. Bye.